Anna Tutova, co-founder of Coinstelegram, and our guest, Jeff Pulver, who is internet pioneer. He worked on VoIP, voice over internet protocol, and he's as well founder of Varnish, and he's invested in over 400 startups, including Twitter. And he's now as well quite actively involved into blockchain, crypto, and Web3 space, and organizes even his conference around Web3, 5G, and communications. And he now has started as well even his own Web3 startup. And he will tell us now more about it. Great to have you here, Jeff.
Thanks for having me as your guest.
So can you tell us how about your background and how did you generally get into technologies and into the telecommunications industry?
Well, it's a long story, but let's just say that I accidentally got here by a series of other accidents, and I don't believe necessarily in coincidences. I believe in serendipity and synchronicity, and that if opportunity knocks on the door, open the door and see what presents itself. And so, with a lifelong passion to communicate, as a consumer, as a hobbyist, it just led me directly into the heart of the communications industry. It seemed like I couldn't avoid it. And unlike everyone else who had to worry about the effects of their work on telecom, I had no market share. So if I wanted to be disruptive to the communication space, I was. I very fortunately in 1995 created the first telephone network that ran on the internet called World Dialup. I was able to lobby successfully for proactive legislation, which has had a profound effect on the way the world communicates, which is the Pulver order that got passed in 2004. And I started a bunch of communication companies. One company, which was called the Minutes Exchange, pivoted into Vonage in the early 2000s, and that was the first successful broadband voice company. I also did things in enterprise and in gaming, and really it comes down to giving yourself permission to dream and to believe and to block out the noise of those people that say you can't do it and understand you can. At the end of the day, if you believe in what you can do, you're much closer to success than those who say no. And that there will be days when you have to be your own best friend. You have to be that person to stand up and believe in you when no one else will. And rather than fighting people who say no to you, find people who say yes. You know, a no is an upside down on. So your challenge is, if you're raising funds, is to find people who you could turn on to yes. In terms of what I'm working on right now is years ago, like in the 90s, when I first got involved in the commercial internet, DigiCash and CyberCash were interesting, but it was really hard to prove that you're going to move a value from one location to another. So when Bitcoin happened in 2010, 2011, that was kind of cool, that I could prove that value that I have, I now transfer to you, and I know that it's transferred to you, and I no longer have it. So that technology, game changer. And fast forward, and you know, the idea of smart contracts is nothing new. Like AI is nothing new. Like frankly, I believe anybody that can write code creates AI. It's not the type of AI that you study at Oxford, but you're giving knowledge or commands to something which executes. And when it comes to different forms of smart contracts, again, if you ever wrote code, you could say that you wrote a derivative form of a smart contract, maybe not the one that Vitalik specified in his paper, but the idea to have a world of oracles that are truth-sayers, that drive transactions seamlessly, magic. And so, you know, in 2020, when I was very frustrated with working with NFTs, I was on a Zoom chat with my co-founder Taylor, and I shared my displeasure in how to do revenue splits with NFTs. Like if you're doing it by yourself, it's fine, but if you're working in a group, unless you know how to code smart contracts, it's like crazy impossible to do that, and expensive. So we ended up creating a company called AgreeWe, where it's like you agree, I agree, AgreeWe. And on the surface, if someone were to look at what we're doing, what we've built is a no-code platform for people who want to do agreements. And then for the devs, we have an ability for developers to take their smart contracts and have a GUI wrapped into it. So it's like we're Canva for smart contracts. However, the truth about AgreeWe is that there's much, much more depth to what we do. Because if someone were to look at how to bring AgreeWe into their office, into their business, what we're really good at is automating workflow. So rather than saying, take this template that's an example of an employment contract, or take this template that's used for raising funds, if you look at how your business works in a any type of chain, it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be chain of custody. It could be any type of series of transactions where you want to automate that because there's drudgery or you're always repeating it. So AgreeWe can come in and you can actually customize the workflow, and we can facilitate that. Because I mean, in business, it's like there's it's like debits and credits. There's an agreement, not necessarily a legally binding agreement, but when you work in your office, there are things you want to get done. And so under the hood, we could do almost anything with it. But for messaging purposes, so people understand us, we create examples of this is what you could do with AgreeWe. But our secret sauce runs deeper.
Yeah, that sounds like a real use case for blockchain and smart contracts. And can you generally tell when do you discover Bitcoin first? And you mentioned as well, like back then in
Well, I mean,
it's about DigiCash.
I mean, I had, so in the 2000s, I was very, very, very active in the in the new communication industry, because I accidentally discovered how to run conferences. And I grew the Von conference into this international gathering where people, it started out with 224 people that were interested in the future of communications. And within like a year and a half, it became thousands of people from all over the world. We get people from 40, 50 plus countries showing up. And so we were at the heart of change. Telcos, their suppliers, innovators, entrepreneurs, investors, they all came. And so in 2010, 2011, from a lot of my friends actually in Tel Aviv, they all became very active in Bitcoin. And they invited me to invest in their startups. If you knew who they were, you'd say, boy, you're an idiot. But you know what? I was fortunate to have the opportunity to invest in things that I was passionate about, and particularly invest in people whose passion I connected to. And while I didn't think anything bad about the early blockchain startups, I wasn't paying attention deep enough to truly appreciate how hard some of those things were. On the other hand, unfortunately for the history of blockchain and crypto, a lot of bad actors showed up, and a lot of every generation, every even 6 months, there's another scandal. Why? Because that element of greed is always present. People who you think are kind, nice souls turn out to be greedy, turn out to be they're actually very good actors because they're good at acting to pretend they're interested in you when really they're there just for money. And I'm hopeful in the future that the value that blockchain offers can bring trust back into the world. Because if we can have a world of trust where we can trust the people calling us, trust the people we're meeting online, trust the information we're getting online, it's a completely different living experience. It's a completely different human experience. And so I'm relying on blockchain to bring back trust.
And as well as for Bitcoin as a crypto, what value do you see in it, and what's your opinion on many other altcoins?
I think the point is that it's always ecosystem based. And for me, an ecosystem comprises of community. And so if you have a bunch of people all working toward a common goal who believe in that message, so whether you're doing blockchain-based communications, I personally believe that if you're looking for the next big sector that's big for blockchain outside of DeFi, it's telecom. There's trillions of dollars to be dealt with over time, representing revenues from phone companies where they have to do settlements. So tier one carriers today settle with each other directly, but everyone else goes through a centralized source to do settlements, and that be completely redone. And when you redo that in decentralized settlements, then you could create a whole futures market on top of that, which makes it super fun. In terms of, and then of course there's what I call programmable communications, which means if you're with a group of people and you're waiting for an important phone call, important text, an important telegram message, and you know your phone's about to die, in the world that I envision, we're able to identify friends on my trust network who I can deliver as an alternative to me, provide them as an alternative way to receive these inbound messages that are of critical importance. And you can do that with smart, again, I call that smart communications, but you can do, it's all programmable with the same type of interface that you would see right now for, to do regular smart contracts.
And now there is quite a lot of hype around AI, and you told as well that blockchain is as well quite connected to AI.
I mean, look, the AI is, hype cycles are hype cycles. In 2018, the most overhyped 2 words in the world were blockchain and Bitcoin. You go anywhere in the world, and the taxi driver, they will tell you, they know these words. They have no idea what it means. In 2020 into 21, the most overhyped term was NFT. People have no idea what NFT is, but they know it exists. When things are hyped, they're not necessarily being used by a lot of people. If you start to focus on the value created and start thinking about what you can do that you couldn't do before, then you have staying power. So, I'm someone who believes not in Web3, I believe in Web5. Because people who've been native to the internet since the internet went commercial, we don't know Web1, Web2, it's called the internet.
So you as early investor of Twitter telling the words of Jack Dorsey about Web5.
Well, if you think about it, we don't need to be put into silos in order to innovate. We just innovate. So the internet's the internet as far as I'm concerned. And then for anyone who wants to join the Vitalik world of Web3, it's a gated community, you need a token to get in, wonderful. It's a fun world to be in, but it's not exclusive. But then I think about Web4, which is coexistence. So I don't have to force a consumer to choose the internet and Web3. They choose what works for them. And what's Web5 in my mind? That's when the 2 worlds come together and we start creating applications that neither world could create without each other. And that's where I think the future of Web3 goes. I think we live in a world where we don't have to worry about projects being commercialized because, let's face it, if you tell someone on the street, even in Oxford, talk about smart contracts, the reality is what you're talking about is neither smart nor a contract. You talk about a wallet, if it's not in your purse or pocket, what is it? And then, of course, what's an oracle? And you start going through all the terminology that's inherent in Web3, and while it's a good 5-minute stand-up comedy act, it doesn't help the fact that we don't speak the language, that nobody speaks that language. Only people who are devs will speak that language. And by the time some of that language becomes pervasive, now you have scandal, right? And so all of a sudden, blockchain becomes a trigger word for people who want to be disassociated with scandal, even if blockchain offers a salvation for the future of communications. So it's a generational thing. Ultimately, I think Gen Ys and Gen Zs who live in blockchain, who their version of the internet is all Web3, they're not going to call it Web3 either, because for them, it's the internet. And there's no such thing as a metaverse, right? It's the reality that you present yourself. That's your metaverse.
And how many years this digital transformation will take?
It will take thousands of years, because we never get there.
So you think it's more like utopia?
It is a zenith of utopia, because whenever we get close, we always change the rules. Of course we get there, but then when you put your glasses on, you realize you never really wanted to be there, you wanted to be someplace else. Because in life, sometimes it's not where you are, it's where you're not. And so people, for whatever reason, always move the goals. They always change the rules, no matter what, so that right when you think you've accomplished and have everything, you have nothing. Now that's not entirely true about everything, but if you're in software development, you always have new operating systems coming out. You always have to get new computers, so everything becomes, there's an inefficiency because of other commercial drives. So, do we hit a moment in time in the next 18 months that the metaverse collides with a public available internet? Maybe. But now, what do you think about these $3,500 devices from Apple? That's pretty cool stuff. But is that commercial for the world? No, but in 15 years, sure. So we're always changing the goals, and what we ask for about today becomes archaic even in 6 months because the goals change, because our understanding of life changes, and our needs change. I think there always will be innovators, at least I hope so, that will be pushing the status quo, And I hope the status quo doesn't get dumb and doesn't stop to push for what they want. And so as far as where this takes us, I believe it's inevitable that every central bank in the world will be digitalized. It's already happened. So they're just not public about it. Maybe securities law will be rewritten in someone's lifetime so that the rules will be clear on how to conduct business. And maybe we'll find an industry where there will be less criminals. Maybe. But until that time comes, we mistrust. It's like trust no one. Just like the X-Files, trust no one. I want to trust. I want to believe. I want to know that I'm working with great, amazing people. And unfortunately, from the movie Wall Street, the phrase greed is good continues in every industry. And so when people get greedy, they take chances. And it's the greed that hurts us, not the technology.
And as well as early investor in Twitter, what's your opinion on the future of this platform after Elon Musk?
Oh, Twitter's fucked. Are you kidding? I think Twitter has run its course. So look, Facebook to me, I was on Facebook before Twitter, and Facebook to me is death book and life book. It's got for me. If people of a certain age, you find the announcements of people that died. In some cases, it's people's parents, it's friends of yours, people's animals, and then when people's families have babies, it's birth book. So it's death book and birth book, occasionally anniversary book. That's it, and then it has no value truly. It never evolved, right? So. But if you think about the origins of Facebook on campus at Harvard, brilliant. Because when you're in an incoming class, it's nice to see the faces of the students you want to party with, that you want to socialize with. And so the need for, quote, a Facebook never went away. But Facebook shifted its business away from its core inspirational audience. So I think there's always a need for incoming freshmen to have a Facebook. But not the way the platform evolved. And frankly, I don't think Facebook will ever get over the Cambridge Analytica scandal. The way that mainstream people who are not that smart were taken advantage of by AI. That's inexcusable.
Well, most of people don't care about the security of their data.
No, but the fact that they were manipulated, the fact that they were treated with misinformation, and then they showed how silly they were by believing it, because there's no truth. There's no truth detector. There's no way to validate, verify what's being said, because some people who believe what's heard, they think it's true until it's proven not. They were totally scandalized. So for me, Facebook is useless. Twitter, if you have a community on Twitter that has no noise and it's just connecting a group of people that know each other, that's cool. As humans, we're highly social. We have a need to connect with each other. That's why there's been a whole growth of alternative communities, tools like Circle. There's I look at Circle, but there are lots of other platforms where communities gather with no noise. Because it's really about listening, connecting, sharing, and engaging with each other. So, but from the big social network part, right now the only thing that seems to last is Instagram, and that's as long as you're not
Why not TikTok?
TikTok is highly politicized, rightfully or wrongfully, at least in America, and at any moment it could be banned for no reason, which makes no sense to me, but makes a lot of sense to politicians who want to have a negotiating edge against the government, and it's like. I don't do politics, so it's like, whatever. But anyway, TikTok it's like Snapchat was replaced, everything's replaced. So, 3 years from now, we won't be talking about TikTok, we'll be talking about the next whatever. And
so what's your opinion on decentralized social media?
I think it's going to be very niche-y until it's not. And it's going to be up to the folks who are running it to appreciate what I just said means.
And as well as you invest into many startups, so what next big trends do you see, and what type of companies are interesting for you?
Well, when I can't find startups to invest in, I start them myself, which is why I did AgreeWe, because I think there's no reason why we're living in a world today where smart agreements are not part of the business process. I think that if you look at the future of business on the enterprise level, corporations will be deploying their own blockchains, maybe level 2 ones, but they'll be deploying their own chains on top of their supply chains. It's inevitable. It's inevitable to have dev shops that use the programmability of a smart contract to do proofs or, and again, every business segment's different, but those are inevitables. It's just whether it's a form of a, quote, blockchain project or not, the need exists. So for me, it's like when I see an opportunity, I take it. So you know, I did 2 startups in the last 2 years. One was involved with smart contracts. The other one is anime and manga. Because I believe that one of the most underserved communities are the super fans of anime and manga around the world. And how do you bring out new projects? So we decided to find a way to onboard creators, have fans participate in the creative process, and then license the byproduct to studios to create new works. So there's that. And you know, I'm dabbling also in different derivatives of music and AI, but what I really do on top of all that is build community. I enjoy hosting breakfasts where I ask people 3 questions: their name, where they're from, and something they're passionate about outside the work they do. I call that passion-based networking. And that's,
and if they're passionate about their work.
well, then they'll say that, but a lot of people break down, and sometimes people start to like get very emotional because they realize they don't have anything they're passionate about, which really messes up my breakfast. But over the last 20 plus years, it's provided a chance for people to get to know each other who they thought they already knew. And so I'm really about community, about physically getting together and connecting and building meaningful relationships. And I like that. And I like, you know, I just recently launched Von Evolution. So I ran the Von conferences for 11 years. And after a 15-year hiatus, I'm now looking at that intersection of what's next when you take the APIs, particularly from blockchain and AI and telecom, and mesh them up. What do you get? The future. And so I'm very, I think the future of communications represents a huge untapped market, which will bring together multiple generations, and that's money to be made, and that's less risky, and you will find out in that ecosystem there's a big value for blockchain.
And I'll ask you the reverse question. What are you passionate about?
Ooh, going to places and inspiring the future.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for such interesting, inspiring conversation.
Thank you for listening.